Live from Austin, Texas, you're listening to the Next 15 Podcast Show with Trey North, a live podcast covering random topics such as relationships, current news, and everyday life issues, along with my co-hosts, Chris McAllister and Andrea Clark. Get ready for the next few minutes as we hope to make you laugh, educate, and inspire you. Welcome to the Next 15 Podcast Show. It's Friday night, 7 o'clock. You know what time it is. It's time for another episode of the Next 15 Podcast Show. I'm not alone. You know it. He's right there on the side of me, Pastor Chris McAllister.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? You know I got to say it every Friday night. It's always good to be back in the saddle. What's going on, everybody?
Hey, man. Missed you, bro.
Yes, sir. You know what? Being missed. You know what I mean?
Man, I want to thank everybody that's listening on the Spreaker platform, also at Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. If you're here for the first time, the Next 15 Podcast Show is a podcast covering random topics such as relationships, everyday life issues, current news, and we love to do it like we do it. Y'all hear it?
Oh, yeah.
Thank you so much for joining. I want to give a shout out to also our international listeners over there in Brazil, Rio de Janeiro, Africa, Europe, Russia, and all of them. I can't name them all, but thank y'all so much for tuning in to us tonight. And all of those first timers at Facebook, thank you so much for tuning in. Very special episode tonight. I am not hosting it. My sidekick right here, who's always in the saddle, is going to be doing it tonight. So guess what? I'm going to let him take it over right now.
Yeah, everybody, welcome to tonight's great show. Listen, we got something great that we're going to talk about it. I know you've seen the flyers. I know you've seen everything, but we have a great show. There's something that everybody really doesn't talk about, and it is life after divorce. You know what? Again, just to give you a brief synopsis of what we actually go through when it's talking about divorce. What we don't understand is that most divorces end up most relationships and marriages end up in divorce. Over 50% of marriages end in divorce. And we're going to talk about some of those reasons why on tonight, man. So I'm excited, man.
Wow, 50%. Wow.
Yeah, it says more than 50%, man. And that goes for, Christian households, Muslim households, all that above, 50% and higher in some areas, man.
Wow. Before we get in, I got to say hi to Mama. I got to do it all the time. Hey, Mama, how you doing? Louise Bernard's in the chat room. Thank you so much, Mama. I love you for supporting the podcast. It's on you, bro.
Yeah, man. So before we jump super into this thing, man, there are some people that I want to bring aboard this train and have this conversation with, man. And starting off with this first lady, she's a curriculum specialist for Killeen ISD, and she's also the president of media for Agape Church of God in Christ in Killeen, Texas. Let's welcome aboard Miss Jolene Santiago. How you doing?
Hello, I'm doing well. How's everyone doing?
We're doing good.
Doing good.
You know, Chris,
so
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Jolene
go
was on our previous podcast, The Narcissist.
So that's right.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, welcome aboard once again, man.
Thank
we
you
got a
so
lot
much.
that we're going to talk about tonight. But that's not all, folks. We got somebody else that I want to bring aboard here. Miss Shamika Montgomery. She's a loyal listener from Lufkin, Texas. She currently resides there in Grand Prairie. She enjoys deep conversations and she loves to laugh. Let's all welcome Miss Shamika. How you doing?
Good. How's everybody doing?
Doing good.
Doing
Welcome
good
back,
tonight.
Shamika. Also on
Thank you for having me.
Narcissist.
Yeah, you also was on Narcissist. Absolutely.
Yep.
But we're not done. We are not done. We have one more that we're going to bring aboard on tonight, and that's going to be Miss Pamela Carbo. She's the Director of Finance for the City of Nacogdoches. She's been that for the last 25 years, and she's going to be helping us talk through some of this on tonight also. How you doing, Miss Pam?
Good. Hi from East Texas.
The wonderful world of East Texas. So excited. So you guys know the topic that we currently have, the topic saying life after divorce. Now, with that being said, nobody walks into a relationship or gets into a relationship wanting to go through a divorce, right? Let's be honest.
Absolutely.
Nobody wants to, nobody goes in saying, hey, you know what? I'm only going to do this for 3 years and I'm out of here. And so with that being said, I want to start off the conversation and just make it kind of general. If y'all don't mind me asking, for everybody who's went through a divorce on the panel on today, if you don't mind, just how long were you married before the divorce happened? And anybody can kind of walk in and start that conversation.
I'll jump in. I was married 21 years. We actually separated on our 21st anniversary. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, let me follow that. I've been divorced 2.5 years, and we separated, I think, the week after my anniversary, our anniversary. So,
wow,
that's a coincidence.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Well, I was married for 7 years, but I've been divorced for 14 years. So, and we were together for a total of 12.
Wow. Okay.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow. And I forgot to mention.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Shamika. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say I was married almost 5 years, so about 4.5 is how long I was married.
Wow. I forgot to add I was married almost 11 years. Yeah, I was in the 10
almost
year.
11 years. Mm-hmm. Right. So just kind of give you some statistics, right? When you go and you start to look at the divorce rate and when divorces actually happen, you look at divorce, it generally happens, it says between the year of 15 years, then you go into the 25-year mark. And then there's an uptrend now for they say right at 30 years now. And so I was like, 30 years of marriage you're willing to throw away at that point? To me, that sounds crazy. Mm-hmm. But, there's so many multiple reasons why divorce happened, right? And so I want to talk a little bit about and have your opinion and this goes for anybody who wants to begin to answer this, just from your opinions, what was some of the main reasons, or in your opinion, what was the main reason the divorce actually happened? Was it that one instance, or was there a build up to it? And if there was a build up to it, like what did that consist of?
I can go first. For me, it was infidelity on his part, but it had been several years. So the first situation was probably 2 years into the marriage, 2 months into the marriage. When he was unfaithful, but I'll say that it was a buildup because it was a continuous thing throughout the 7 years that we were married.
Wow. Shamika, what about you?
So for me, it was dishonesty. Of course, infidelity, I believe, happened at the end, but it was just the repeated things. You know how you have those flags and you see it, and so something happens and then they lie about it and then something else happens. So it kind of was a build-up. And I also think that even though he had friends who had been married, like he always talked about how he had so many friends that were married that gave him advice. So he felt like he was going to be, a good husband and be good at marriage. I don't think that he actually was ready for marriage.
Okay. Miss Pam, what about you?
Well, it's going to probably sound strange since we were actually married for 21 years, but I think our divorce began about 2 years into our marriage. We tried so hard to make it work over and over. There was fidelity on both parts. 2 years into the marriage, again, 10 years into the marriage. We went through counseling. We talked with our parents and our preachers, and we really tried. But I think from the very beginning, we were just not compatible. there was just we just weren't made for each other. We made beautiful children, but we weren't made for each other.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Trey,
I mean,
what about you?
I mean, for me, I have a different story because it was no infidelity or anything like that. I don't know if on my end, mine happened quick and suddenly. I didn't even see it coming. A situation happened in the household that, I mean, you know, and the wife, you know, she left, and I mean, it was, when I say quick, I mean like I didn't see it coming. A situation happened one day, and then the next couple of weeks after that, you know, they decided to walk out. You know, they didn't reconcile. They didn't want to, you know, try to seek any counseling or anything like that. So I was just kind of left in the dark, you know, as to why. I did find out later on the reasons. You know, I'm not going to disclose that. I don't want to put anybody on blast. But but you know, it wasn't because I was told it wasn't because I was a bad husband or anything like that. It was because they felt like they didn't want to be married anymore. I put it that way. Yeah.
Okay. And you know what? I want to go into this also because as I begin to just do some research in regards to this also, a lot of people pertain or particularly look at the divorce rate being so high due to the fact that a lot of people get married so young and they don't really know what they're looking for in life at the time they get married, right? So you get people who are getting married at the age of 21, 22, 23 that might still be in college or not in college or school, whatever they really haven't figured out who they are yet, right?
Yeah.
And then trying to live life with another individual. And so, as you begin to, what people say, fall out of love, I don't think necessarily that it's falling out of love. I think that you are growing up and now you're just now understanding who you are and what you really want.
Right.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so you have a lot of divorces that happen between the ages of 21 and 30.
Wow.
So out of that 50%, about 26% of those happen in that time frame. And so did anybody get married kind of young and felt kind of that, like you kind of grew apart at that point?
That was exactly our issue. I think I was 23. He was 21 when we got married. And neither of us knew who we were. And within a couple of years, I already felt like I was not where I was supposed to be. And, I guess most people, like you said, the statistic is, before 30, most people probably would give up before then. I guess I'm just really hard-headed because it took me 21 years.
Wow. I find in that is you really don't, at a young age, you really don't know who you are. You haven't had any life experiences or, 21, you barely just got out the house. Your career hasn't really, you kind of still deciding on what you want to do with yourself in life. And you're trying to find out what you like, what you don't like. And, it's hard to have somebody to love you when you don't really know what you want out of life or what your expectations are. You know what I mean? So I feel like, when people get married young, especially when they're real young, they haven't lived yet. My advice would be to first go out there and discover, because, as they say, there's plenty of fish in the sea, and I get it. You think you're in love until real life situations come up, and you find out what really love is, and what's love got to do with it at that point.
You know what? I say this, I do say this all the time, and, you guys correct me if you guys feel like I'm wrong, but I truly believe that your relationship or your marriage isn't real until it's tested, right?
Yeah.
If that's come from friendship or marriage, your marriage to me, if it hasn't survived anything, any type of fire, then it can't necessarily be real. And the reason for that is because it's not until you go through that particular test or that testing of your marriage to then see, because you don't really see people or who they really are until they're put under some type of stress, right? You think coal is only, a diamond can't be coal until it's put under pressure, right? And so it's not until you got that pressure put on you until you figure out who's who and what, and what's what, right? And that only comes with time. You know, like you said, Ms. Pam, 21 years of trying to make it work. I wouldn't say that's crazy. That's just how long it took for you to be like, you know what, we're at still a cold stage. There is no diamond in the rough in this.
I have a question.
No diamonds.
I have a question, Pam. Like for you to wait that long to decide, you guys to split up. Was it because you didn't want to be embarrassed or disappoint your parents or your family members, or what was the reason?
There is so much to that. Yes, I'm the oldest of the 3 children of my parents. I always, growing up, felt like I had to be the perfect child. I had to do everything right. The expectations were, that you make all A's and you go to college, and there are certain expectations. And I didn't want to let my parents down. And we grew up. I'm a very religious person, and the last thing I wanted to do was go to my parents and tell them that I was going through a divorce, because it's not something that happened in our family. All my aunts and uncles, everybody is married and has been married forever. And it was a lot. I think it took me 21 years because it took God a long time to give me the peace to actually leave, because I felt like I was disappointing God too. And so it took me a long time to get to that point.
Yeah.
And then I had children that I thought, well, maybe I should raise my kids and then leave. Yeah. And, that's never a good idea either, but.
Right. Right. I want to say this too. The church has demonized divorce for so long, right? Yeah. And what I want to say this in regards to that, because that you just struck a chord there, Ms. Pam, where you try your best to look good in front of people, and I say look good, but you don't want to disappoint people, your family, your church, and because divorce is looked upon negatively. But sometimes that's the only way to truly be happy. Me and my wife had this conversation a couple of days ago, I want to say, to the fact that, people who stay together, there are some people who don't do everything that it takes to stay together. And then there's some people who have tried everything, and then that is the only option. And, you have to then determine what is necessary. Like you said, you did everything. You went through counseling, you did, and again, 21 years. You said from 2 years in, you knew that this might not end up well, so that means 19 years of you trying to make it work. Now, in my opinion, I feel like you did probably what's necessary. Yeah. I feel like a lot of people don't really try to the best of their ability to make the relationship work. Now, again, in any marriage, it's not going to be easy. There are going to be ups and downs, goods and bads, and all that good stuff. When you get married, especially in the church, the preacher tells you that, through good and bad, through richer or poor, he's warning you that you're going to go through all of this. You know what I mean? And a lot of us, we use it as an scapegoat. Now it's fancy to get a divorce. Like you see everybody who get married and they've only been married for 2-3 years, and then they get a divorce, and it's okay. But why did you get married in the first place? Is my question. So I do have a question. I'm gonna point this at Miss Jolene, right? Mm-hmm. In the relationship that you were in, what seemed to be like your underlying issue? Not talking about the other individual. What did you learn about you while experiencing the divorce?
So what I learned about me is that there's several things that I learned. How to become, independent. Like I depended on this person to the point that it's like I didn't have my own identity. So after the divorce, I had to find myself. I had to find my identity, who I was. There are several different, things that I had to overcome, just being with a person, every day for 7 years, so you learn to overcome, just being lonely, learning how to just make it through life, and I had my children I had to think about too, so it wasn't just me. So just leaving or getting a divorce, first of all, for me was very embarrassing. So I had to get over the embarrassment. Okay. I had to get over the shame of it. And it took a while. You know, I didn't want to have to explain to people, you know, why or what happened, you know. And so I also had my kids that I needed to think about. Do I, you know, go with the divorce? You know, I have these children. I didn't have a job, you know, so I had to learn independence. 'Cause I was dependent, dependent on him as being the sole breadwinner, you know. So there's a lot of lessons that I had to learn, you know.
And that's you know, that's crazy, because I look at it that, you know, a lot of people point the finger, you know, but sometimes it's about learning about you, you know, when you're going through something like this, you kind of got to turn the cameras on the inside and look at you. Ms. Shamika, what did you learn going through that? Because like Ms. Jolene said, the embarrassment of it. I think a lot of people wrestle with that, and I think Ms. Pam also said something, just wrestle with that embarrassment of divorce. Did you feel any of that, or did you struggle with any of that?
Yes, and I think for women especially, just like they both said, it's the embarrassment. You don't want to let your family down. And I think like Miss Pam said, sometimes you feel like you're letting God down, because like you said in the beginning, when you go into a marriage, that is the goal, to stay married for life. Right. And so for me, you know, I didn't get married until I was 35. So I was older. So I remember saying so many times, it's going to be one and done. Like, I'm not doing this again, you know, right. Because, you know, I was 35. So it's like, I waited all that time. So I thought it was going to be lifelong. So when it wasn't, then I kind of was shocked. Like, okay, what do I do now? So I do feel like, even though I am about 3 years out and about a year out from actually being legally divorced, I'm still trying to figure out who Shamika is. Like, who Shamika is without having to be a giver and not having to worry about the other person and if he's okay. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's still a learning process, like every day.
Gotcha. Trey, what about you, man?
Hey, I like to take. I'll answer that question. Can I take a commercial break and then we'll come back? Hey, y'all, keep it locked. Thank y'all so much for tuning in tonight. It's Life After the Divorce. We'll be right back after these messages right here on the Next 15 podcast.
Hey family, Chris McAllister here, Senior Pastor of Life Changers Church here in the great city of Austin, Texas. I wanted to come and personally invite you to one of our live services. Listen, I know we're still in a pandemic, but God is doing something great here at Life Changers Church. And I want you to be a part of what he's doing right here at Life Changers Church. From our great praise and worship that literally ushers the presence of God into this building, and also our great and wonderful band, man, that literally backs up our praise and worship team. But not just that, we actually have a great production team that brings you everything on our live broadcast, and they do such a wonderful job. Or if you just want to come and be a part of just the regular membership and sit down and just experience the love that comes with Life Changers Church, because we truly understand that with here, we're changing lives starting with ourselves. So I really want to see you here. Make up in your mind. Invite your family. Invite your friends. Hey, even invite your enemy. Right here in Austin, Texas at 15020 North I-35 Frontage Road, Austin, Texas 78728. Listen, me and Pastor Kim will love to see your face in the place. God is up to something big and is doing something big for you. I'll see you when you get here. God bless.
Back to the Next 15 podcast show. Life After Divorce is tonight's topic with our special guests Jolene, Pam, Shamika, and yours truly, Trey North with Chris McAllister is our host for tonight. So,
Yes, sir.
we went to a commercial break. I was dodging the question, but could you give it to me again?
Yeah, don't you feel? It make you feel like you're dodging questions, huh?
Yeah, I had to go to commercial break.
Yeah,
Pay some
no,
bills.
no.
Your bill.
Well, no, exactly. But it was just I was saying earlier, and Miss Jolene and Shamika, thank you guys for answering that question. But like I was asking them, like, what do you feel again in doing the divorce process? You know, and I know we're gonna get past that portion, but doing that divorce process, do you feel like at the end of the day, do you feel like everything was done on your end that could have or should have been done to make it work, or do you feel like, hey, you know, we could have did better, or we should have did better, or?
I mean, yeah, I do think we should have done better, but as far as on my end, I did do everything that I could. You know, I asked for counseling, I asked for a reconciliation because of the nature of the situation. We wasn't talking infidelity, we wasn't talking about, you know, abuse or anything like that. You know what I mean? So, you know, this situation was it's kind of hard, you know, to call it. You know, it had nothing to do with me. You know, as far as what I was told, it had to do with another family member individual. So I didn't get a chance to reconcile. You know, I mean, I wasn't ready to throw away. You know, I was madly in love. I had that agape love for her. You know, there was nothing I wouldn't do for her. I put her on a pedestal, and I tried my best to treat her right. I wasn't perfect. You know what I mean? But at the same time, you know, I mean, I didn't want my marriage to end. I had a great marriage. I had a great life. I mean, you know me personally, I had a great wife, you know, and you know, I'm not mad or bitter or anything like that. It's just that, man, you know, they walked out, you know, and like, you didn't even get, I mean, you know, over what? You know, over something that could, you know, we could have just put prayer together and we could have got on our knees and we could have let God take this thing and, you know, and fix that. So like you said, man, marriage isn't, it's not marriage until it's tested, you know? So we were definitely testing, but I think we could have made it. I think if it was, if the other party was willing to invest that, you know, and not give back 10 years, you know, 10 good years, you know, I think we could have made it. But, you know, unfortunately, you know, it was one-sided on that issue. So I just learned that, you know, you know, you have to forgive. It is embarrassing, like the other ladies mentioned, especially the type of marriage I had. People looked up to our marriage, and you know, especially when you put your woman up on a pedestal and your Facebook page is all mostly about her, you know, and, you know, and then, you know, I was embarrassed, but then I had to realize that, you know, it wasn't you know, all me. You know what I mean? It was that individual that didn't want to reconcile and work it out. And then, you know, I just didn't, you know, tell anybody. So right now people are watching, they don't even, a lot of people didn't know. We only kept it in the immediate family. You know what I mean? And then a few friends. We didn't tell a bunch of people. People to this day are still praying for our marriage, and we're not even married anymore.
Okay, understood. So let me swing. Is it okay if I want to swing it real quick, because I want to give you guys opportunity to talk through some things also. And you know, Ms. Pam, what do you want? I'm gonna start off, if it's okay with you, Ms. Pam. In this, what do you want people to know, or what do you want to make sure people understand that may be listening right now when it comes to divorce? What are some things that you want to make sure that they understand through the divorce process, and then on top of that, after the divorce, on life after divorce?
Well, you know, honestly, what I learned, and that, you know, I've shared with some of my friends that have had rocky relationships, is that you have to give 110% to try to save your marriage, because if you don't, you will regret it. You have to. And if it takes you 6 months or 6 years or 21, do the work. And if you cannot make it work, you have to accept that sometimes we fail at things. And for me, that was the hardest thing, is because failure is not something that I have a lot of experience with, and I don't handle it well. I was a very independent woman. And so I thought when I left that, you know, things would be fine. I have learned who I really am in the last 5 years. I'm not the person that was married to my ex-husband for 21 years. I'm a whole different person now. I think God has worked a lot in my life over the last 5 years. But, after divorce has been, it's been 5 years. August will be 5 years. And it's been hard. My ex-husband is remarried to a wonderful, wonderful woman. They have a new baby, and I am extremely close with them. I'm actually, for the first time in 20 years, friends with my ex-husband. We were not friends the last 4 or 5 years of our marriage. There was very little love and very, very little like. We can be friends now, and I am very thankful for that. That's one thing that I think most people comment to us about. We didn't advertise, like Trey said, we didn't advertise that we were getting divorced. The people that knew us knew it had happened, but I think people now are like, y'all have the best divorce relationship, and it's been difficult, but it's been 5 years that honestly, I don't regret at all, because I have learned who I am, and I love who I am now.
Awesome. You know what? That's hard to do. I can tell you that right now. And that's just from listening to other people that have went through this. It is very hard to maintain that friendship after divorce. You know what I mean? I'm gonna be very honest with you. I could imagine what that would feel like if me and my wife to get a divorce. I love her so much, and I pray that she loves me the same. I wouldn't know what to do. I would have a total meltdown. She's my queen, and to have to, have that feeling, and then it end up, in that, I couldn't tell you how I would react at all whatsoever. Let me pass that same question to Ms. Jolene. Like, what do you want people to make sure they get out of this, as of, when it comes to just divorce in general? What do you want to make sure that people understand, with this conversation?
Well, divorce is tough. It's not an easy road. It's so important that you forgive the other person. That most of my healing came from that, from forgiveness. And I wish them the very best. I don't have any bad thoughts or anything. I've forgiven. Once you forgive, you don't just keep dwelling on it or keep bringing it up. But, I do want to say that, it was, even though it was a really rough, our divorce was it was really rough. It was hard. I had to start all over again, and, starting over is not easy. I didn't have anything. I didn't have a car. I didn't have a home. I didn't have money. I didn't have a job. I didn't have anything. And then now I'm supporting 2 children, So being able just to have that strength, I depended on God a lot. God was my strength, and He really just made a way for me, even when I didn't even have money to pay rent, on the verge of being homeless, So, God was always there, and, but I would say that forgiveness, I think my true healing came when I really just let it go and really just, forgave Him. I forgave Him throughout the marriage, but really I questioned myself a lot. I reflected, what could I have done better? And we went through counseling, I worked really hard, to save it. But it wasn't mutual. It wasn't, two-sided, it was, one person doing more of the work than the other. So, so unfortunately, it's not something that I wanted to happen, but, he's doing well. He's remarried, so, and I pray that it goes well for him. I want the best for him, I do. And I pray that it goes, better, than it did for us.
Okay. Awesome. And so, you know what, since we're doing it, it can be very hard when you just want it to go smoothly, but the other party doesn't. They make it intentionally hard, and you're trying to be the bigger person. that's to me, that's what would make it hard for me is you're trying to be the bigger person, but the other individual on the other side is making you drag this thing out and trying to make you come out of your character and all of that good stuff, and stuff that should be simple becomes hard. That to me, that could be a headache. Shamika, what about you? Yeah, what about you? What do you want people to kind of know through this?
Well, also kind of like Jolene said, I think the biggest part for me was just having that forgiveness, because I would have to say probably a couple months after I left, I let him know like, hey, I forgive you. Like, I release you, because I knew for myself I had to do that in order for me to move on and be at peace. Because when I first left, I got my own apartment, and me and Jesus, like that was my prayer closet, and we handled some business, for a few months, just so I could kind of work through some things. And kind of regroup, because like I say, I didn't ever expect to be going through a divorce, because what's really funny is the January before I left, I actually was planning a 5-year recommitment ceremony that I was going to do for him as a surprise, because his parents weren't able to be there when we got married. And so that's what's so crazy. It's like just a few months before everything happened, I was still trying to make plans to, celebrate and do a surprise for his parents, So it's like, it's crazy how things like that happen. But for me, I also just want to say that you are not a failure. I do know that a lot of times with divorce, and I think especially for females, I'm not going to say anything about the males, but all of us ladies here, we try to do the very best, because I think for females, it's a little bit harder, because we are givers and we are caretakers. And so we're going to put in like that extra effort, and we're going to hang in there, like Pam said, for 21 years trying to make it work, but sometimes the best solution is just to give it up so that you can have peace.
You know what? Peace is the best thing.
Yeah. Hey, I want to give a shout out to Bree over there in the Spreaker app. Thank you so much for tuning in to us, Bree. That's Bree's Bonnets at Instagram. She sells those bonnets. Is that what you got on your head, Shamika? No, that's bandana. My bad. It's a bandana.
It's a Ninja Turtle bandana. I'm just playing. So Trey, I also want to give you the opportunity also, and we're going to keep going after this. What do you want to make sure that people kind of understand in regards to the divorce part, right? What do you want to make sure that people get out of this conversation?
I mean, for men, we kind of don't show our emotions like that. For me, I did my crying by myself in the car. A lot. I did my you find Jesus even deeper when you're going through the trial.
Right.
But I moved away, and I'm here in Austin now. But I just want to say, as far as guys, it's okay to show emotion. I mean, especially if you love someone, and especially when you try to make it work. For me, it was a lot of prayer. It was a lot of tears shed for me. But one thing I just want to say is, like the rest of the ladies saying, you're not a failure. It was just, especially when you tried to make it work. It's an error is only a mistake unless you fail to correct it. And I learned that years ago. So, for me, I just want people to understand that, hey, listen, again, the title says it all. There is life after divorce. I think it's an opportunity to reinvent yourself, if you will, to find who you are, and all of the mistakes that you have made, back then. It gives you an opportunity to fix it, you know what I mean? To change the things that you don't like about yourself, to be able to, do some research on yourself. Maybe you were the cause. Maybe there's some things that you did in the marriage that that you could have changed, and you didn't get that opportunity to do it, but there's still room for improvement. There's still a God that sits on the throne. There's still a God that can work on your heart and to change you. So, the embarrassment factor, that's just only a little while. That's what the enemy puts on you to make you shame, to make you feel inadequate, and to make you feel unworthy, but you are worthy, and so, guys, I just want to say to the guys that listen, it's okay. A lot of times we bottle up our emotions, and it goes through. I think we did a podcast called Doors. Emotions will take you through different doors, and instead of emotional mismanagement, especially for guys. Guys have a lot, and the females too. I know you guys are emotional, but guys have a lot of emotional mismanagement that takes place when they get angry, when they really just should have been crying. You should have just cried and let it out, but now you hold all that emotion inside, and now you're bottling up this anger, and then you're taking it to another door, another level, and it's anger, and now it's resentment. You can't even get along with the ex, and y'all have kids together. You can't even co-parent, and in peace. You know what I mean? You're not with them, but why you still fighting with them if you ain't with them no more? You know what I mean? So, that's what I would have to say. That's my 2 cents on that.
And that's awesome, because again, us guys, we do have exactly what you just said, a lot of emotional mismanagement, when it comes to things like this, and that's a great segue to the next question I have, because as we've been talking about the actual divorce itself. I want us to begin to trickle into the life after divorce, and I want to ask this particular question, and that question is, what has been the hardest thing that you've had to deal with after the divorce?
I'll tell you what, let's answer that. Let's take one more commercial break. We'll answer that when we come back. Thank y'all so much. If you're just coming in, it's Life After Divorce. We'll see you guys in a few minutes after these commercial messages. Welcome back to the Next 15 podcast show. So y'all know, Bill Cleep Speaking podcast. I will be doing that probably in about a month. We're getting things prepared for that. I'm really excited about this podcast. This has been on the shelf for a couple of years. Chris knows about it. Yep, I've been speaking about it. And I think tonight being the final episode of the season, it's a transition, kind of like Life After Divorce. It's a transition for me into a different segue into my life. So I've been doing some studying. I've been on sabbatical and doing a lot of studying. Haven't even been at church. Been missing church for about a month, and so I can prepare not for the podcast, but just for life in general. So we're back. Chris, you have the floor, man. Thank y'all so much for tuning in.
Yes, sir. Let me first say, man, that was an awesome commercial, by the way, man. So excited about that. Can't wait. Can't wait to see that, man. And I know you're gonna be doing great things. But back to my original question, and again, this is for anybody who wants to start off to answer that. We've been talking the process and the management of the divorce, but the podcast is Life After Divorce, and we want to talk. I want to start off with the heavy hitting question: is what has been the hardest thing that you've had to deal with since your divorce, if it's pertaining to your ex or just situational because of the ex, as it because of, the divorce and going into getting your own place or trying to, manage money or whatever that looks like. What has been one of the most difficult things that you've dealt with after the divorce?
I'll take it, ladies, if y'all. I think the difficult part for me in putting the pieces back together is switching career paths. Just my whole life was, it did a 180. I was working full-time ministry at the time, and then I had to get back and work in the secular world. I forgot how crazy everybody is in the secular world. I got, like, man, you know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
Like, I got to punch a clock now? What are you talking
Welcome back to the
about?
real
Until
world.
we get
Welcome back to the
full-time
real
ministry.
world.
Yeah, so, the hardest for me, one thing I want to give a testimony. I didn't go through any financial hardships. One thing I do want to say about the ex-wife, we didn't part on bad terms. We didn't part, it wasn't negative. We weren't fighting over anything or anything like that. We just parted ways. I didn't agree with it, but we parted ways. Everything was civil and everything was peaceful, and the transition was so good for me on that end. Because we had a house, we had to sell the house, and then I moved away, and I was immediately found a job. I mean, just like that, I found a job, and I stayed with a buddy of mine who let me stay with him for, about a month, maybe a month and a half, and I was able to get back on my feet. The hardest thing was coming back, coming back and going to work, coming home, and nobody was there, and I'm like, whoa, and I'm like, oh man, this is really starting to kick in now. I'm not married no more. I'm not coming home, and seeing somebody and kissing them and saying, hey, how your day was, or, I missed you, or none of that. I mean, my dog wasn't here. She took the dog. I had no comfort. And so the hard thing for me was to realize that, okay, we're starting all over again. It's like basically it was life after divorce. It was a major change in my life, but I can say that, that was the hardest thing, but I have to give praise to God, the simple fact that he, nothing surprises him. So, nothing surprises God. He knows the beginning, the middle, and the end of your story, and he had it already set up for me. It was almost like, hey, he covered me and he shielded me. But the hardest part, man, was just not being married, being married for that long and being madly in love with somebody who chose to leave, and then you go home and you're like, oh man, this is really happening. This is really happening.
Wow.
You know what I mean? It's so fast. So that's my hardest thing. That's my answer to that.
Okay. What about you, Ms. Pam?
Well, I was blessed and unlike Jolene, I can't imagine what you had to go through, because you literally had to start from scratch. I mean, if you had no job, I mean, you did a lot. I was blessed in the fact that I was the primary breadwinner in my marriage. And so when I left, financially, things didn't change for me. I didn't move. I didn't have to change jobs. So for, I would say 75, 80% of my life, nothing changed. What was hard for me was the loneliness, because we split time with the kids 50-50. And so the nights that my kids were not with me was very difficult, because I, like Trevor said, you come home and there's no one there. And so I soon found out that I needed to be an old crazy cat lady, because I needed something in the house. So I got a cat. But no, seriously, that was for me the hardest thing. The first couple of years was just the loneliness was painful. And part of that problem is, after 21 years, I lost who I was in my marriage. And so my friends were my ex-husband's friends. And so when we divorced, I not only lost my marriage, I lost a lot of my friends. And so those first couple of years, it was literally me and my cat. And half the time I had my boys. My daughter was in college. And so it was very difficult. But God has placed several very, very important people in my life. I have very, very good friends now that mean the world to me, and they have gotten me through this. And so I feel like most of that is behind me. Now, I'm not going to say that it doesn't hit me sometimes. Sometimes it is. It's very lonely. But, there's one thing I have, and I have it at my house. I have it at my office, and it says, God has already prepared the way. He's just now working on preparing me for the journey. And it may take years to prepare me for that journey, but he knows where I'm going and he knows how I'm going to get there. And I just have to let him lead me. And that is the hardest thing, is just letting go and letting him lead me where I'm supposed to be.
Oh, that's good.
That's
That is so good. The Bible says that all things work together for the good of those who love the Lord and who are called to his purpose, right?
Right.
And so with that, sometimes I look at, when as you ladies and Trey, you talk about divorce, I know it's not a good thing, but could it have been the very thing that might have been needed to get you to the next place?
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Oh, yes.
Absolutely.
Honestly, you say that, but I think God's told you to say that, because that was the one thing after 21 years that convinced me that it was okay for me to leave my marriage, because I was always so concerned with how that I was going to disappoint God if I left this marriage. But what God told me, and this is my feelings on it, was that, Pam, you went into this marriage outside of my will, and so I'm going to let you out of it, because it was never my will to. And honestly, I believe that from the very beginning. Cody and I probably should have never gotten married, and we both know that. And so it was, had it been ordained by God from the beginning, I probably wouldn't feel that way. I just feel like we forced something that we shouldn't have done from the beginning, and we drug it a long time. And God finally just got my attention one morning and said, Pam, it's okay to leave.
Right.
And I did.
Wow.
I want to give a shout out to Gail over there in the Spreaker app. Thank you so much, Gail. Shout out to Linda Joyce Hale over there in Facebook, and Adrian Carter. Thank you so much.
Hey. So what about you? What about you, Miss Shamika? What has been the hardest thing since the divorce that you've had to experience in regards to the divorce?
So I have to say, for me, is really just finding out exactly who I am. Like, I think it's still a process for me. Because I did feel like, okay, when I get married, it's going to be forever. I'm not going to say that I'm questioning those things now, but I do look at it a little bit differently, because I'm like, well, I thought that was going to be one and done. So what do I do now? I don't have any kids. We didn't have any kids together. So it's like, what do I have? It's just me. It's just me and God. So kind of like Pam said, just allowing him to give me that next step and just trusting him and following him. So I think for me that has been the most difficult, is just figuring out who Shamika is.
Wow.
As an ex-wife, without a husband, with no kids. You know what I mean? Like, it makes you look, because people look at you and they say, oh, well, what's going to happen in the next 5 years? You start to feel uncertain, because you're like, well, I kind of thought I had a plan. I kind of thought I knew where it was going to go. But then when you get divorced, you're like, okay, what do I do now? So yeah, I kind of think that's where I'm at. Yeah.
Oh man, and see, when you talk about that, like that's so crazy how we always have a plan. And I was just saying this earlier. We have a plan for life, and then when life don't go as planned, then we have to turn to God at that point and be like, all right, God, I had put you on the back burner because I had my life planned out, and now it's not going to to plan. Where do you want me to go, or how do you want me to go at this point? And and we're always discovering who we are in life. As we mature, we're not the same person, and so you find out who you are at one level in life, and then as you trickle into life and get a little bit mature, you're still trying to figure out who you are at that moment. And so what about you, Ms. Jolene? What has been one of the hardest things you've had to deal with post-divorce, if you know what I mean?
So for me, it was definitely life-changing. I had to learn how to manage everything. I had to get a job. Now I'm a single parent. I was in ministry, full-time ministry, had a lot on my plate. I was even at one point on food stamps and HUD housing, and that was a blessing for the moment that I needed it. But I want to say that, God has really just after the divorce has really blessed me. One time I had a person tell me that, God's not going to bless you because you're divorced, so, that's not true. I own my own house now, my own car, very good career, making, financially stable. So, God can bless, even after divorce, even though you're going through, have you gone through something even tragic and traumatic in your life, you can still come out victorious, you can still come out successful and prosperous, so for me, I had to learn how to manage a lot, and it showed me how strong of a person that I am, because I didn't know how strong, I was, I didn't want to go back home, I didn't want to, my mom said I could go back home, and I didn't want to, so I had to learn how to be independent. I had to find my own identity, and also too, being a new Christian, and then we were married at 22, had a first child at 23, second child at 25. So now I know more now than I did then. I didn't understand or know kingdom purpose. And so now I understand kingdom purpose, and I understand the importance of seeking God in, for relationships. So for my next relationship, I'm going to, ask God, hey, God, what do you want me to do? What is this is this your will? Is this kingdom purpose? Because I didn't seek that before I got married. I didn't even know anything about that, so now I know a lot more now than I did then.
And you know what? And that's a lot of times why, to me personally, now this is just my personal opinion, that's the reason why a lot of times marriages don't work, is because they're not put together in regards to kingdom.
Yes.
Right? We're trying to, what we've tried to do through the years is we try to fill a hole, or we try to keep up with the Joneses, or whatever terminology you want to put there, but we're not marrying each other, or we're not marrying the right person due to the kingdom purpose, right? Right. And so we're marrying out of flesh, we're marrying out of what looks good, what sounds good, instead of marrying what's going to help build the kingdom. Is this individual going to help me build the kingdom in the manner that it needs to be built, right? And so, to me, again, just my personal opinion, don't beat me up in the chat, but that's, to me, the reason why a lot of marriages don't work in regards to that. But let me say this too. I want to bring up something that we really don't talk about a lot, and I really learned this from my wife. My wife kind of helped me in regards to these scenarios and situations when it comes to talking about, when you're talking divorce. We never talk about, if you have kids, what it actually does to the children when the divorce happens and afterwards. So for the ones who have children on this panel, let's talk a little bit about children and how do you manage the emotions, the thought process when it comes to children and the divorce, and how do you live that out afterwards?
Ooh, I'm going to jump in because, man, this one was a hard one for me.
Yes, ma'am.
We actually separated 2 weeks before my oldest daughter graduated from high school. And we did not have a good marriage the last few years. And of course she was older, she was 18, and she saw it. And so many times she would sit down and she says, Mom, why don't you just leave? You would be happier if you would just leave. And then I left, and whoo, there was a whole different story. It became really real to her, and then she didn't understand why I was leaving. Because I will say that, like I said, we had problems. We got back together. We had problems. We worked through them, and in the end, my ex, he was trying, but at that point, after 21 years, I just didn't have anything else in me. And I literally, at that point, just had to walk away. And she didn't understand that. My two boys were young. Well, not real young. They were 6 and 9. And I was real worried about how they would handle that. But it honestly has never been an issue for my boys. Only, I think, because me and my ex got along so well after the divorce. They actually saw us friendly and speaking to each other in a great way for the first time. But I will tell you, that was one thing that I was very scared about. Was I didn't want to get a divorce because I wanted my children to see, that marriage can work. But what I finally figured out in the end was what I was modeling for my kids was toxic relationships, and I did not want that for them. I didn't want my boys to think that the marriage that I had with their daddy is the way that the marriage they should have with their future. And so at that point it became real to me, and I was like, I've got to do this for my kids. Where I thought I was staying for my kids, I had to leave for my kids because I needed my kids to see a healthy relationship. And they are now. And so I think honestly, I probably left at the right time. I think God worked that all out for us.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it was difficult. And like I said, my ex has remarried, and they have a 1-year-old little boy, and my boys are 14 and 17 now, and they are loving having a 1-year-old little brother. And things have worked out well. In the end, it all worked out just the way God planned for it to work out. Amen. It's just we had to accept that. So.
Well, Ms. Jolene, what about you?
It was very hard on my boys. When I went through the divorce, they were 4 and 6. So they grew up without their father being present. My younger one, Daniel, he was diagnosed with autism in school. So I had to deal with all the issues, with that autism brings, the meltdowns, the getting in trouble. And so I tried to handle it the best I could, but they didn't have a father figure, there. Elijah now, he's 21, and I see that it's affected him a lot. He cried a lot just throughout the years, just growing up, without his father being there. And he cried, and it was very hard. And I see now that even in his relationship with his girlfriend right now, it's a lot that he's learning because he didn't have that role model. He didn't have a good example of a good relationship, a healthy relationship, because what he saw when he was little was he saw the arguing, and he saw that it started to get really, toxic, toward the end. And so now he's just trying to figure things out. I really didn't have any problems with him in school, but for him, it seemed like he always had to have a girlfriend. He always had to, it was like a void he was trying to fill. And so now he's going to be a father now. So, and I know he's going to be a wonderful father. I know that he's going to do everything that wasn't done for him. And I know he's going to take care of his little boy, but it was tough. And I know that even now there's still healing that needs to take place. I think he's getting there, but for him, it's still a process. He's still very hurt to this day by it. And the only thing that I can say, the advice I give him all the time is, you have to forgive, and you have to do the best that you can. I think there was a certain time when he blamed me for the divorce. And so then, it just seemed like he was just taking it out on me, and I had to even just sit down and explain to him, that divorce had nothing to do, I love you, but it was something that him, me and his father had to go through, but it had nothing to do as far as with him, whether it be that his father didn't want him or whatever the issue was, that his father didn't love him, because he went through all of that too, so a lot of emotions that he had to, go through. So, like I said, it's a process. And so, he's getting there slowly, but he's getting there. It's tough on kids, whether they're small, whether they're older,
Yeah. Yeah, and you're absolutely right. You know what? And that's something that, and the reason I bring it up is because I feel like, and just for me, also dealing with people who have went through divorces, even in my own family, how looking at how it affects the kids. And then, like Ms. Pam, you said one thing, they have an opinion about it at one stage, but as they get older, the opinion about it changes, right? And so, and I've had the opportunity to be able to talk to individuals who have experienced that change as being a child of, parents who have went through divorce, right? And so, that's just crazy that, that you say that. And, again, we don't rarely talk about that. I have a question, and in regards to this also is, after the divorce, do you guys feel, even for the kids or you yourself, do you feel that counseling is needed after that divorce? Or do you feel like you pretty much, after the divorce, you're like, I'm good, I'm better now, but do you feel like you need counseling, or should there, in your opinion, since you've been through it, is counseling needed after the divorce?
I mean, personally, I probably should have went to counseling. I think so. I mean, I'm fine. It didn't affect me I was never angry. It was a traumatic event for me, but I was never angry. But I think there was at times questions of why, and I failed because this was my second marriage. So I was married previously to my children. Me and this last marriage, we didn't have any children together. I helped raise the son, but for me, I felt like, man, twice, okay, I'm almost like one of our friends, Ty Holsey. He says, I don't know everything what to do, but I know what not to do. You know what I mean? And everything that I did in my first marriage, I made sure I didn't do it in my second marriage. So right. I still feel like, and even to this day, I feel like there's some things that I might need to check on. A lot of times, our mental wellness, we need to make sure that we're keeping up with our mental wellness, and because there's a lot of things that we stuff down inside, and then we just, it kind of gets stuffed down, and then a situation or a word or it'll cause a trigger to come up, and you don't even know the reason why you feeling like you were angry, like I want to kill somebody right now. You know what I'm saying? And it's something that's been suppressed for so long. And you haven't really dealt with the root of the problem. Again, that's that emotional mismanagement. And I feel like counseling is not just counsel with the pastor. I'm talking about a qualified person who has gone to school for this. I know some people gonna probably, chop me down for that, but I'm just saying, listen, okay, if you had a pastor that never been divorced, you know what I'm saying? How can he help you?
Right.
If he, so I feel like counseling is very essential to individuals. I mean, just so that you can find out more about yourself, because I believe, I have friends that have been counseling, and they say, hey man, I found a lot about myself, and things that that I was suppressing that I didn't even know, so right. For me, it would be, I approve counseling. I probably don't after the show.
Let's see if we can get a group rate.
Yeah, right. Oh man. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, we didn't do any type of counseling. I think a lot, especially here in East Texas, there's a stigma about, seeing a real therapist. Now, of course, we talk to pastors, but, like you said, I think we all need to understand that sometimes we really do need to talk to a professional that can, at least guide you into that thought process. And going back now, I wish I had done that for myself and my children. It's one thing that, I don't have a lot of regrets about this whole process, but that's probably one of them. I think we probably should, even if we didn't do it long term, I think just a couple of sessions would have kind of started that process, that healing process for us sooner, because it took us a lot longer to start that, getting past that, the fact that our family wasn't together any longer. And we probably could have done it faster if we had had some help.
Awesome. What about you, Miss Shamika?
Actually, it's funny that you bring that up, because probably a few months ago, I kind of felt that shift, like something is kind of off with me. And so I am going to get back into counseling, just because I just want to work through some things and see if there's some pieces that I need some help with. And I think that even though when you go through a divorce, you do have moments of healing. When Jolene and I did the narcissist episode, that was very healing. And so after that, a lot of things came up for me. And Facebook and Amazon has those reminders, and all these pictures keep coming up from years ago, and you see a picture and then you kind of get triggered again. So for me, it's funny that you asked that, because I'm actually going to start doing it, because it's something that I need. So
awesome. Well, yeah. So I'll tell you right now, listen, counseling is great. Even as a pastor, I thought the old traditional way at one point in time in my life also, even though I haven't been through a divorce or anything of that sort, just counseling in general, right? And so when I started going to counseling myself, just to kind of help me with me, right? Just helping me with me, I learned so much about myself in my counseling sessions and talking through things. And it's always good to talk to somebody that know what to ask, how to ask those questions. Like Trevor said, it is that professional. Maybe your pastor don't have the skills, to be able to open and unlock that side of the brain that'll get you thinking a little bit differently, right? And so with that, come to your pastor for your soul's sake, go to a counselor for your mental sake, right? And so, that's awesome. Jolene, what about you, ma'am?
Oh, definitely. I think counseling would have definitely helped a lot for myself and for for my boys. Definitely. I mean, that's something I think that they should look into doing. Especially for their future relationships. Because it does impact all of their relationships here on out. So. I think for their future wives, I think that would be great, for them just to. I know before I got married, we had counseling before we got married, but I think even just individually for themselves, and then even before they take that step of even getting married, I think it's very important that they know who they are and take care of all of those issues that they're facing, that they're dealing with.
Awesome. Listen, guys, this has been great. And I got one more question, if that's good with you. Trey, is that good with you, since I'm hosting tonight? I got one. Go ahead.
I'm good. Has the ladies, I mean, have y'all, I want to ask, have the ladies, do y'all have anything y'all want to ask? Right. Or, I'm hoping this podcast reaches the hundreds of thousands, so that maybe we have said something tonight to maybe help somebody, in their journey of life after divorce. Do you guys have anything that y'all want to add before Chris asks that question? No? Okay.
Well, I just wanted to say that, life isn't over. Even though you're facing divorce, life is not over. You can still make it. You can still be prosperous. You can still be successful. Just take it as a lesson, a life lesson, and you learn from it. Even though it's a bad situation, you can still get some good out of it.
Good. That's good. That's good. All right. So my last question for the night, guys, and here's what a lot of people have the question of when you start talking divorce and life after divorce, right? When is the right time after being divorced? When is it, in your opinion, the right time to either start looking and dating again? Now, I know that number changes with the individual, but I'll let you go as whoever wants to go and take on that first. When is it the quote unquote right time?
Oh wow, I think we lost Shamika. Hopefully she comes back in. Man, I mean, I don't do all the talking. I think once the excess baggage has dissipated, because you don't want to go into something fresh and new. You know what I'm saying? Carrying baggage and dumping it off on somebody who had nothing to do with your previous relationship. You know what I mean? And it's like, that's what happens a lot of time. People, and I have to take the hit on this one too. Sometimes that loneliness kicks in, and you feel like you want to be with somebody, and you just jump into something, and then you find out that's not the one you want to be with. You know what I mean? Again, I think it's when you find out you learn yourself, who you are as an individual, because now
Right.
you're putting the pieces back together, and now you're coming into your own identity. And if you haven't healed yet, you know what I'm saying, you could be taking those problems over into another relationship and wreaking havoc. You know, some of us come from relationships that are bad, and then we take it over to another one, and we're being spiteful, mean,
Right.
hateful, and making the other person pay for something that somebody else did. And you could be running off somebody that's potentially could be a husband or a wife. So I think the healing has
Right.
to take place. I think, again, it's just counseling, you know what I mean? You know, and I'm not saying everybody needs counseling, but I do think that there should be a period where you just sit down for a minute. You know, nobody wants to be your rebound. You know what
Right.
I'm saying? You know, there don't want to be no rebound. You know what I mean? So, you know, that's my 2 cents.
You know, I made a conscious effort to stay single for a while. I had no interest in dating for at least a couple of years. I mean, none, because I knew that I needed to figure out who I was, because I left my marriage a completely different person than I entered it. And
Nice.
I didn't like the person who I was. I had just completely morphed into somebody that I don't know why I expected my ex-husband to love me. I didn't love me at the time. And so I made a conscious effort not to date. I had people ask me out, but I'm like, I'm not ready. And it had nothing to do with my ex-husband. It had nothing to do with the divorce. It had everything to do with, I needed to know who I was, because now the person that I am looking for would not have been the same person that I was looking for 5 years ago.
Right.
And
Right.
I would have been looking for the same person that I had prior, and then I would have stepped into another relationship. The people that I want to spend my life with, and this is nothing against my ex-husband, because he is a good man. He just wasn't the right man for me. And the person that I'm looking for now is a whole different person. And so I took my time, and I have friends that are divorced that, you know, just have dated. And my one thing that if I could teach anybody anything about being divorced is to be single for a while, learn who you are, love who you are. And God may have somebody out there for me, and he may not. But at this point, I'm okay with that. 5 years ago, I wasn't. I wanted to be with somebody. I needed to be married. And now I'm like, if God has somebody, he will send him to me. If not, I'm okay. And it took a long time for me to get there. But yeah, I mean, it's I have my eyes set, and I know the kind of man that I want, and I'm not settling again. I'm not.
Wow. I feel you on that, Pam. You know, I feel like that too. I mean, you know, I'm good now. I can be at home by myself and chill. I can go to the movies by myself. I can eat a steak by myself. I'm not tripping. You know, and I'm not saying I don't want companionship. Don't get it twisted. But at this point, I mean, it's just me. You know, I can get up and fly to L.A. like I did a month ago when I get ready. I don't have to ask nobody. I just pack my bags and I go. I go to Padre Island. I go to L.A., Vegas, or wherever I want to go. You know, because it's just me.
Right.
You know, I'm an empty nester. My kids are grown. I have a grandson, you know. So, I mean, I feel you on that. I really do. I feel you on that.
What about you, Miss Sharika?
I don't know. I mean, that one is kind of hard because I think it kind of depends on the person, and then, of course, your situation. And just the healing process, and you don't want to carry those things into another relationship. For me, I just being transparent, I did date someone while I was gone from the marriage, but I wasn't legally divorced. So I was dating someone for like a year. That probably wasn't the wisest thing to do. I don't really feel like I brought a lot of things into it, but I should have at least close that chapter first, before trying to be with somebody else, so yeah.
Yes, ma'am. What about you, Miss Jolene?
I say when you are the best version of yourself, because it's not fair for the next person to, have to deal with somebody who is not at their best. I say, take care of your finances, take care of yourself, make sure you're mentally stable, you got things going for yourself, because the person that you're going to be in a relationship with deserves the best version of you. It's not fair to treat them bad because of what you went through in your past experiences, So I say just take care of yourself and do what you need to do while you're in that, enjoy your singleness, make the best of it while you're single before you get into the next relationship.
Right.
I like that.
Wow.
Best version of you.
Yeah. The Bible say this, and I'm going to end with, I'll end it with this. The Bible says, we need to be watchful and understand the gift of singleness and the gift of marriage. We have again demonized being single as if it's something wrong with you because you are single, right? When the Bible in turn says it's a gift to be single, because when you're dealing with your own life, you have to deal with your own set of crazy and then bring in somebody else's set of crazy, maybe that might not work. So it's a gift to be single, but it's also a gift to be married. And when you start looking at singleness as a gift, I think more people will respect being single and honoring that life versus always downing the single life just to get married. Will everybody be married? No, because everybody's not meant to be married. Let me just go ahead and say that. People like, there's somebody. Everybody has that saying that, there's somebody out there for everybody. Is that true? Is that true? Because there are some people who are better fit single. And it is what it is.
Yeah.
And so when you understand the gift of singleness, we'll stop trying our best to, like Miss Pam said, force something that shouldn't be forced.
Yeah, that's good. I guess we're gonna wrap it up. Ladies, do y'all have any final comments? I know, Jolene, that was a great. I don't know. That sounded like a final comment. That was great.
Yes.
I don't want to disrespect. I mean, is anybody else have anything they want to offer to our listeners tonight before we get off the podcast? Huh?
Well, I would say that if anybody is watching this that is going through a divorce or anticipates that is in their future, find somebody, even if you can't go to therapy for whatever reason, find someone in your life that you trust that has been through a divorce and sit down and ask them everything that you have any reservations about. Just pick their brain, because you can learn so much from people that have been through this. Because like the pastor said earlier, if you're talking to somebody that's never been through this, they can tell you things, but they've not been through this. And until you have felt the pain and the suffering of a divorce, you cannot help somebody else through it. So find those people out there in your life that have gone through the same thing and lean on them.
That's some good advice. I like that. I like that. Shamika, did you have anything before we go? Do you want to?
No, just thank you for the opportunity for having me. I really appreciate it. It's another piece of the healing for me. So thank you.
My mom says, wonderful podcast. Know yourself before you try to relate to someone else. That's good, Mama. Thank you so much.
Mama.
I appreciate it. Listen, ladies, I want to personally thank y'all for coming up on here and being transparent and sharing your story with all of us and everybody that is listening on the podcast. Thank you so much, Shamika and Pam and Jolene, for your willingness to do the podcast. I really appreciate it. I know it's taking time of your day and you have to, kind of exploit some of your business. But I truly believe that I think we had a great podcast tonight, and I want to thank y'all for making that happen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then Chris, of course, man, thank you so much for heading the show. You know what I mean? Listen, Chris is taking a break for the next 15 podcasts. Andrea's taking a break from the next 15 podcasts. Y'all like, well, what's going to happen? The Biblically Podcast is coming out.
Absolutely.
And I will be doing that with several pastors, with some friends of mine, those who they'll like to dip into the Word of God, and we'll take everyday topics like this, and we'll talk about it from a biblical perspective. But listen, before I go, I just want to give a shout out to everybody over there, Speaker Gail and Breeze Bonnets over there. And thank y'all so much for everybody that listened on the Facebook. Mamie Henson, Jacqueline Hammett, Adrian Carter. I know I'm probably going to miss some people. Jacqueline Vasquez, and I forgot, there's somebody else in there. Thank y'all so much for listening. Listen, you can follow us at Next 15 Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Or you can go to www.next15podcast.com. If you want to hear the replay of this, you can go to the Spreaker app, you can go to the website, or you can replay it right here on the video on Facebook and YouTube. We'll be taking a hiatus from the Next 15 for about 30 days. We still got some topics that we're going to drop, but we got to get Biblically Podcast Speaking headed up. But if you like what you heard tonight, and you want to support the podcast, listen, go to Next 15 Podcast, find and click the Buy Me Coffee tab, and you can show your support. You can buy us some coffee so we can stay up late at night and burn the midnight oil and create these nice podcasts for you, available on Apple, Google, Amazon, and all of your favorite podcasts. For the Next 15 Podcast show, this is Trey North. For Chris McAllister, Pam, Shamika, and Jolene, thank y'all so much for listening, and we'll see you on the Next 15. This has been a Next 15 Podcast production. Remember, we are live Friday nights at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. Make sure you follow us at Next 15 Podcast on Instagram, Spreaker, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And don't forget to subscribe to our website at next15podcast.com, where you can get exclusive content, read our blogs, and get information on upcoming episodes and special events. We'll see you on the Next 15.